Imagine getting called a gold digger by your boyfriend, only for that same man to come back later and ask you to help pay his rent because he can't afford it anymore. And somehow, that's not even the craziest part of this story. Because what started as an argument over dirty dishes turned into a breakup, a personality change, and 6 months later, behavior that genuinely made this woman consider leaving the country. So OP is a 30-year-old woman who's been dating her boyfriend for 2 years. They move in together, and honestly, at first, it sounds pretty healthy. They agree to split everything 50-50. Bills, chores, responsibilities. They even have conversations about the future and agree that if they ever have kids, responsibilities would need to shift because pregnancy and childcare obviously impact one partner's body and career more than the other. In other words, they actually talked about expectations like adults. Then, 6 months after moving in together, the boyfriend gets a small promotion and a pay raise.
And suddenly, this man starts acting like he got promoted to CEO of the planet.
He slowly stops doing chores. At first, it's little things. Dishes here, laundry there. Then it escalates. He'll literally sit on the couch all weekend watching her clean while his half of the chores pile up. His excuse? Work stress. Now, both of them work corporate desk jobs. He's not working 14-hour construction shifts. He's not coming home covered in engine oil. He got a modest promotion and apparently decided household responsibilities were beneath him. Then comes the breaking point. OP finds mold growing in pots he was supposed to clean. And not only did he not clean them, he put the lids back on. Like he thought the mold monsters would stay hidden forever. She ends up taking an entire day off work just to catch up on cleaning. Then one week, it's his turn to buy groceries. He doesn't do that either. And he doesn't even tell her. So now there's no food and no backup plan. At this point, OP tries to solve the problem. She says, if you're too overwhelmed to do chores, let's hire a cleaner. Reasonable. He says no because he doesn't want strangers in the apartment.
Okay, then she suggests grocery deliveries. Again, practical.
He calls her frivolous with money. So OP decides to take his logic all the way to its conclusion. She says, fine, I'll do all these responsibilities, but I'd need to reduce my work week from 5 days to 4. I'd expect compensation for the hit to my career and payment for the household labor. And suddenly, Mr. I have an answer for everything is speechless. Because this was never about money. This was about him wanting extra labor without paying for it. He wanted the benefits of a housekeeper, personal assistant, and grocery manager for free. And then comes the bombshell. She asks if his friends put him up to this. He says, a proper woman would be happy to look after the house.
And then he calls her a gold digger. I'm sorry, you want free cooking, free cleaning, free grocery shopping, free emotional labor, and potentially for her to sacrifice her career. But she's the gold digger? The math isn't adding up. OP finally snaps. She tells him if he's too broke to afford help, maybe he shouldn't be so proud of a promotion that apparently made him incapable of washing dishes.
And honestly, that line probably hurt because there was truth in it.
So they break up. Since the apartment belonged to him, she starts packing and he starts ignoring her. And while she's loading her packages, she realizes something painful.
She spent 2 years building a relationship with someone who suddenly seemed to view her as support staff.
She tells him not to contact her and leaves. He says she'll see sense. She blocks him everywhere, but he doesn't stop and starts sending messages through mutual friends.
A mutual friend mentions he's recently been consuming a lot of masculinity podcasts. And OP suddenly wonders if this entire personality change came from getting sucked into an online rabbit hole.
Because according to his messages, he still doesn't understand why she left. And then comes the icing on the cake. He asks her to help pay next month's rent because she left too quickly and didn't give him enough time to adjust his budget. Sir, didn't you just call her a gold digger? Now you're asking for money?
Reddit absolutely had a field day with this one. Top comments were basically, he wanted a trad wife on a modern budget. He accused her of gold digging while trying to get unpaid domestic labor. Funny how he wanted a stay-at-home partner right after a tiny promotion. When he described his dream life, it always centered around his career goals. Her career? Her ambitions? Her plans? Those barely seemed to exist in his vision of the future. Now here's where the story goes from frustrating to concerning. 6 months later, OP updates everyone. The breakup was clean. Her dad helped collect the rest of her belongings. She slowly distances herself from mutual friends because nobody cut contact with her ex. Meanwhile, the ex goes through stages. First, he's apologetic. Then he's angry. Then he blames her for everything. He loses the apartment because he can't afford it. Moves into a studio. His sister starts helping him out. Even she eventually gets tired of cleaning up after him. Which honestly tracks. Then OP reconnects with old friends. She gets asked on a date by a new guy named Martin. She says yes. They're mostly just hanging out and getting to know each other. The ex finds out. Nobody knows exactly how. He shows up at her father's house asking to talk. Then a mutual friend tells her something genuinely disturbing. Apparently, he'd been driving around her town for weeks hoping to spot her. So much so, he lost his job. The same job that started this entire chain of events. The same job he wanted her to prioritize over her own career. Because he spent weeks trying to find his ex. At this point, OP says she's genuinely nervous and is even considering moving to Portugal. And honestly, I don't blame her. Because this stopped being about rent or chores a long time ago. This is now somebody who can't accept that the relationship ended. Now, to be fair, breakups can absolutely make people spiral. Losing your partner, your home, your routines, it can wreck someone's mental health. But heartbreak doesn't entitle you to someone else's time, labor, money, or attention. And that's the key issue here. Throughout this story, there seems to be a pattern. Whenever OP made decisions that benefited herself, he interpreted them as betrayals. Leaving. Blocking him. Dating someone new. Moving on. All things she's completely allowed to do. Meanwhile, he repeatedly expected her life to revolve around his needs. And honestly, this is why conversations about domestic labor matter so much. In real relationships, resentment often doesn't begin with cheating or major betrayals. It starts with little things. One person quietly does more and more. The other slowly contributes less and less. And by the time someone finally says, "This isn't fair," months of resentment have already piled up. Sometimes the argument is about dishes. But it's never really about dishes. It's about respect. It's about whether both people see each other as equal partners. So what do you think? Did this guy genuinely get pulled down an online ideology rabbit hole and destroy his relationship? Or was this always who he was, and moving in together simply revealed it? If your partner suddenly started expecting you to take on more work at home because they got a promotion, would you try to work through it, or would that be your sign to leave?